In this episode of Collect or Reject,
what I thought was really funny is it's supposed to be like, okay, it's the assassin school, and they're literally in the assassin school for like 2 pages, and then they go on this like road trip.
Whether you a hero or a villain, expedition leads to crazy feelings. Every page I turn, you know I gotta feel it. New stories everywhere, busting out the comic strip. Story so good, it got me on a power trip. Crazy battles got my mind in a total race. Page 1, the original story takes place. So gear up for the new storyline. Writing so good it sends chills down your spine. Collect or reject, 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 collect or reject.
Greetings, true believers. Welcome to Collect or Reject, a show about comics, or more specifically, lesser known comics. My name is Mark Withers, and I'm honored and privileged to be your host today. Here's how it works. Each week, a guest and I will read 5 issues of a pre-selected title, and based on those 5 issues, we'll try to determine whether or not that comic should be added to your pull list. Today's comic, Deadly Class by Rick Remender and Wes Craig. Joining me today to talk about it is an old friend who just happens to be a comic book creator in his own right, as well as the lead singer of Fox and the Red Hairs. Ladies and gentlemen, J.L. Fox. Fox, thanks for being on the show, man.
Thanks for having me. It's been quite a long time since you and me have been able to actually talk and everything.
Totally, man. I mean, it's been years. I mean, you and I toured together with Guar and with Dirge Within. You know, I haven't seen you in many years since then. So catch me up, man. Like, you know, you're working on a comic now. You did Sisterhood, which we reviewed about a year ago. But aside from that, what all is going on with you? Catch me up.
Let's see. Well, you know, I'm doing the band thing right now, of course. We just got done playing a festival out in Washington called Litha Cascadia. Really, really fun, really crazy, like in the middle of the woods, kind of like pagan Vikings, you know, thing. And yeah, just hopefully playing some festivals again soon, now that everything's opening up a little bit more and getting a little bit more lenient. And currently, I'm working on a comic book called Alvia. I'm not entirely certain if I'm going to name it Alvia Noble War or just Alvia. A lot of people just think I should name it Alvia. It's how can I put this? Like a Don Bluth film comic, like
Wow.
you know, like Land Before Time, The Secret of Nim, where it's like, oh, this looks like it might be for kids, but there's some really dark, traumatizing stuff in it. You know, basically an old '80s cartoon. It's about Peepaw. He's a Scottish soldier. He finds a little French girl, and he makes a promise he's going to take her back to her farm to get her through this war that's going on. But all the characters are drawn more cartoonish. Like Peepaw he's a pumpkin-headed like Jack Skellington kind of, you know, Return to Oz character, and the little girl is a kitten, and the kitten slowly grows to be a cat as the story progresses on and on. So that's what I'm working on right now. Yeah.
Right on, man. Sounds really good.
It's
you know,
sad.
Is it sad? It actually, you know,
It's sad.
you
It's
mentioned
super
Don
sad.
Bluth, so like Don Bluth's animation, a lot of those films usually have like a sad component. So as soon as you mentioned that to me, I knew it was going to be one of those like heartstring type of comics. But that said, man, I mean, we're going to jump into talking about Deadly Class in a second. But before, I wanted to ask you exactly like how you got into comics. What was the sort of stepping stone for you?
Well, I mean, I read a lot of comics when I was young. My grandmother was really good at these things. Like, she taught me how to read. She just bought me comics. And I remember, you know, of course, I'd read Spider-Man, X-Men, you know, Batman, Superman, Green Lantern. And I liked Captain America later on because it was more like spy stories. And, you know, that really kind of got me into it. It's funny, I was supposed to do a report at the end of 5th grade year on frogs, and, you know, having undiagnosed ADD at the time, lost interest, and I decided I was going to do it about my comic books. This is the only A I've ever gotten in my life, was in this class, because she thought I was just going to talk about comics, when really I was like, Captain America was used to get people to join the war, you know, fight Nazis, and the X-Men were actually about the civil rights movement. My teacher was like, I'm really surprised he knew all this. And so that was kind of like the beginning point maybe of like really liking comics. And I got out of them a little bit in high school and then got back again. I just fell back in love and was like, I want to write this. I don't want to just read. And I've always been a creator, music, but comics just came naturally to me. I really enjoyed them and I wanted to get into it. And I finally got my foot in the water in this, small press company. The guy who ran it was an idiot. He spent $300,000 and we were never in Diamond, never in anything. Like, how not to run a comic business 101. Like,
yes,
I could write a book alone on that. And then finally, I met Richard through some mutual Facebook friends, and he asked me to write some stuff. And first I was writing this really weird horror comic with the same artist, Vince. And it was called like Underskins. It was all about like this tattooed girl that could use her tattoos as powers. And it never came to fruition. But then he wanted me to write the Gwen story for his Sisterhood comic.
And I want to say too, after reading that comic, one thing that I really liked about it, one particular scene was where she shows the guy like the life that he could have had if he hadn't betrayed her, all the great things that passed. You see that feeling of regret that he has, that like, oh, I made the wrong decision. I thought that was a really nice touch, and I wanted to tell you that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mark. That actually really upset me when I wrote it too, because I was like, all right, break this up, present, what could have happened? Oh man, what is wrong with me? Like, why do I write this stuff? I need to see a therapist. Like, wait, I need another therapist.
Right on. Well, with that said, let's jump right into Deadly Class. Now, I've said in other episodes, I am terrible at giving a synopsis of a comic, right? So I tend to either let the comic intro do it or Wikipedia. So in this case, we're going to choose Wikipedia. Deadly Class is set primarily in the 1980s and follows students enrolled in King's Dominion's Atelier of the Deadly Arts, a secret boarding school in San Francisco, as they train to become the next generation of top assassins for crime families across the globe. Now, this is a very general sort of description of what actually exists within this comic. I would add to that the central character, Marcus Aguayo, starts out as a homeless teen who gets sort of rescued by one of the students, Saya, who then takes him to this school because she sees some kind of potential in him, that he could be one of them. The overall premise of this is pretty original for a comic, but I wanted to get your take on it. What do you think about this one, Fox?
Well, I mean, I like the premise. I especially like he starts off homeless at first. It's not like, he's, one of the rich students that gets put in and everything. Your stereotypical kind of like, oh, he's from the black sheep. It's like, he's homeless and they notice his potential, especially, I'm not going to reveal anything of why of that potential. I think it's got a pretty good original storyline. I mean, it's very thrill kill kind of a comic. It seems like at times, kind of like Kill Your Boyfriend by Grant Morrison. Mm-hmm. I think I really like the idea that there are cliques in the assassin groups. It's like the writer almost wanted to be like, I just want to write a high school story, but I'm going to make them assassins. And so you have like the preps, the jocks, and stuff. But it's like, oh, it's the rednecks, the cartels, and then this. And so I like that idea. I think it's very original, and I think it's a pretty cool premise and how they kind of handle it.
Right on. I like this book particularly because it screams punk rock to me. Like, there's so much in here that reminds me of the 80s, which that was my coming of age, was like the mid 80s. Yeah. And I rolled with like the punk and the alternative cliques at that time. And you see like nuances of that throughout this book, even in the artwork. Like, it's very like the jagged lines that like Wes Craig draws, and the way that he constructs these characters, the way that they're dressed, the way that Rick Remender throws in just subtext within just like small conversations where they talk about the Smiths. They may be on a mission and they'll
depressing music that you're listening to.
Right. Yeah. They're like, hey, why are you not listening to Run DMC? This is cooler. Like, no, the Smiths are sad and they have the courage to be brave. And like, just like little things like that here and there, he really captured the spirit of that moment. And I really like that about this comic. And it sort of sets it apart to me from your typical like cape and cowl type of stuff.
It's like, when the character is on acid, spoiler, is on acid. I mean, he's watching Robotech, and I'm like,
Mhm.
what? Like, you do stop getting my
Right.
nostalgia running. Like there's a scene where Hunter S. Thompson walks past them in a hotel, and you're like, there's these slight little pop culture references to that decade and that time that's really cool that like, and it's not overboard where it's like it's just constant. It's like here they are, here's a little snippet here, here's a quick snippet here. What I thought was really funny is it's supposed to be like, okay, it's the assassin school, and they're literally in the assassin school for like 2 pages, and then they go on this like road trip.
Right.
Like so the first 5 comics aren't even in the assassin school. I was like,
Right.
that's kind of cool. I like you're pushing it instead of now it's the training issue, and now it's this and this. It's like, no, we're gonna have fun with this. Now we're gonna do all our little things.
I agree with literally everything you said. There's like a very small component, like the school itself is like a very small component. Like you have a scene with the teacher who specializes in poisoning, and you have your self-defense teacher. They show like a day in the life, but it's literally just one day in the school. And there's like nothing else after that.
Yeah.
Everything else exists either after hours or on this road trip. One thing that I do like about it is it's sort of like a subtle retelling of like an X-Men comic, if you break it down. Like the headmaster, Mr. Lin, is Professor Xavier for all intents and purposes. Saya could be Psylocke, could be Jean Grey. Marcus could be Wolverine, you know what I mean? Like, and they each display like these sort of twisted versions of characters that we've seen before, like, and I kind of like that. They do it in a way that's like, it pays tribute to like what came before, but at the same time, it's not like a ripoff. Like, it doesn't feel like a lift.
Yeah.
Did you get the same vibe off of that?
Yeah, I totally got the team up, X-Men, Young Bloods, Teen Titans kind of like thing,
Right.
that was going on. But it's almost as if, because, there's no superpowers, it seems. It's just like, no, they're assassins and they have their own little way of assassinating people. And so it's like, that's their superpowers, the way they, kill people and stuff. That's their little calling cards instead of giving them superpowers. I think it's a really cool general idea, and I'd like to see where it goes. But I did get that feeling of like, this guy's obviously like, oh, it's Cyclops maybe, but like a twisted version of Cyclops, like what I like also, it's kind of got a Wanted feel by Mark Millar,
Yeah.
but it's not like stepping over that line that Mark Millar likes to step over at times where you're like, all right, Millar, pull back a little bit, buddy. Like it seems a little bit more like, nah, this isn't going to go nasty and everything. It's going to be straightforward and just kind of fun, but also it's a thrill kill, so you're gonna get violence in it. But yeah, I agree with you. It really does have like an X-Men feel, and like the classic teen kind of thing. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, we've been sort of like talking up the positives of this comic. Every story that we sort of bring up on this show has like its pros and its cons. Were there any cons for you? Like, were there any negatives when you started reading these 5 issues?
It's like, I guess it's the classic problem, pretty kids with problems kind of thing. It started hinting in there, like every character, every character is going to have a sad backstory in some kind of way, because it's a dark story. But, it's like, oh, my dad abused me. It's like, oh, I saw my dad. I don't want to ruin anything, but, like the pretty kids with problems kind of thing started coming up a little bit. And I was like, all right, let's pull back a little bit on that. Let's not make everybody's got this sad story, so maybe one of these characters like, no, I just want to kill people because that's what I want to do. Like,
right.
It's kind of obvious. Like they're put in there by like rich families or like cartel families and stuff. So it's like some of them must be like, no, I just want to do this. So I guess that'd be my only con, is if the continuance of the, pretty kids with problems keeps happening. Like I said, the pop culture references are cool. I'm just hoping they keep it as a minimum. Some of the art, once in a while, some of the panels are a little, that could be worked on a little better, but it's just mainly background stuff. I mean, everything else, I like the first mentioning of like, oh yeah, Reagan led all these people from mental institutions out, and like, oh, glorious. So there we go. We're jumping right into that. Cool.
Right.
This is the 80s. Even the drug taking isn't just like overt. It's made like kind of like a joke instead of like, yeah, we're on acid. It's like, oh, you took way too much acid, man. So it's funny in the making fun of it. I guess that's my cons right there. Is just kind of the pretty kids with problems, like is about
Right
it.
on. Right on. Now, for me, I think that, you had mentioned that the clicks were something that you looked at as sort of a pro, like things that you really enjoyed. For me, I enjoyed that aspect in the sense that clicks do exist within every high school, but I thought it was a little two dimensional to make the cliques racial. So, for example, like
I
all the white
agree.
kids are
I agree.
Dixie Mafia, all the Asian kids are Yakuza, all the black kids are from street gangs. They could have done something a little bit more original. I don't really think that there was anything intentionally discriminatory about it. It was just kind of like a low bar. I thought they could have
Yeah.
done that aspect a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I was like, okay, like, so only these particular, racial people are allowed in these groups. That sounded more like prison than, a high school. Like,
Exactly.
really? Okay. I
Right.
mean, it's like, it's a cool concept. Like I said about the cliques, it's a cool concept, but there's no white gangbangers in these guys or Mexican gangbangers here, or I mean, who knows? That's just the first 5 issues. So I mean, it could be down the
Yeah.
line. There's other characters we haven't seen, but there's a lot more, cartels and like mafias out there than just like the triad, the yakuza, and the cartels and this and this. So I agree
Absolutely.
with you on that.
Primal Warrior Draco Azul is the story of a man who finds a giant robot from ancient Mayan times and uses it to fight giant monsters that are mysteriously appearing all over modern day Mexico. It's a little bit of Godzilla, Power Rangers, and Pacific Rim, all set against the Mexican backdrop for a unique cultural flair. Guys, I've been lucky enough to read the first few issues of this, and so far, I gotta say, I'm loving it. If you're a fan of mecha, kaiju, tokusatsu, or just really cool action comics in general, this is gonna be right up your alley. You can find Primal Warrior Draco Azul on Amazon Kindle and Comixology. Get yours today. So moving right along, I wanted to sort of take a second and talk about the dollar value of these books. Comics sometimes appreciate in value, sometimes the value goes down. Now, at the initial time of this publishing, the cost of each of these 5 issues was about $3.50. And today, the average cost of each individual issue is about $14.77, with some being a little bit more, some being a little bit less. Does that sway your opinion one way or the other in terms of your collect or reject verdict? Because that is really, if you break it down, it's like about a 400% increase in value. Does that have any impact on your verdict?
If you're a big collector, $14 is not bad to get like a first issue, of something. So I mean, I want to go back and get the first 5 issues of Saga, but I think those are like 50, $60 right now.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, if you just want to read it, I mean, for the same price as one of those books, you can get the whole trade paperback, and
That's true.
go that way.
Absolutely.
And even trade paper, people collect trade paperbacks nowadays. So like, it's a win-win situation.
Right, right. Now, looking at it from the perspective of like trends, right? We know that there was a Deadly Class TV show that aired on Sci-Fi a few years ago. In fact, that's how I became aware of the title. Whether or not that had any impact on the price of the books today, it looks like there's sort of like an upward trajectory, although it's not an intense, trajectory. It's not like the difference between, say, like Bitterroot #1 when it first came out, or an early Miles Morales comic book versus what that would be like today. That
Yeah.
said, I don't think that it really like affects my opinion today. Like I love the comic. I would probably collect it either way. It doesn't make me more or less apt to collect it. So what would you say, Fox? Collect or reject?
I would collect. I mean, it's an interesting premise. It's a fun comic. It's not too dark and yet it's not too lighthearted. It's got a good medium. It's got a really good medium. And the story, there's something growing there, and despite its flaws, I mean, yeah, if you're just in for assassin, wanted, Punisher kind of type comic, but with kids having a good time doing it. Yeah, this is up your alley. Like I said earlier with Grant Morrison's Kill Your Boyfriend. If you've ever read that, you will love Deadly Class. So
Right
I'd
on.
say collect. I'd definitely say collect.
Right. And I would echo that. I'm going to say collect. In fact, I do collect this comic. I fell in love with the TV show. It was one season, but it was one of the best shows on television that year in 2018. I immediately ran out, started collecting these issues, and it really spoke to me as a person who was that age during that era. It reads to me like a John Hughes movie gone wrong. You know what I mean? I really
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Oh man, if Anthony Michael Hall, when he was really skinny, not bulky Anthony Michael, he was an assassin, and be like, wow, okay, okay,
exactly.
Right on, I'm on board, John Hughes.
Yeah, that's the vibe I get from it. So for that, I really have a lot of love for this one. So it's going to be a collect for me. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, JL Fox, for being here today. Before you go, please tell our audience where they can find you.
You can find my band on Spotify, any streaming service. We're on all of it. Fox and the Red Hairs, like rabbits, HARES, not follicle. Find that. Right now, I'm currently putting together some stuff to put Alvia online. It's really just more about letting my friends see where it's going. But soon I'll have some stuff up. I'll have some stuff up very soon. So we're just finishing up the ash can and the first issue lettering, and then gonna start putting that out, and hopefully everybody will like it.
Fantastic, man. Can't wait to check that out. And of course, I want to thank all of you for listening. If you like what you heard today, please rate and review the episode, and just let us know what we can do better. Like, what do you like about this show? What do you not like? Until next time, this is Mark Withers. Catch you on the next page.
Collect or Reject is a production of Press Play Media in association with Von Keats Sounds. This episode was produced and edited by Mark Withers, music by Keith Sewell. Deadly Class was created by Rick Remender and Wes Craig for Image Comics. For more information on this and other episodes, visit us at collectorreject.com.